An American businessman disrespected President Ibrahim Traore in public. He thought money made him powerful. He thought Africa would bow to him. But what happened next shocked the whole world. Let's begin this true African story. It all started on a bright morning in Burkina Faso's capital, Ouagadougou. The air was full of excitement. People were talking about a big foreign guest arriving, a famous American businessman named Robert Hayes. He was known for his wealth, his boldness, and his sharp tongue. He had made billions from oil, gold, and big factories across the world. Wherever he went, leaders bowed to him. He was used to control. He was used to being treated like a king, but this time, he was not meeting just anyone. He was meeting President Ibrahim Traore, the young African leader known for his courage, honesty, and pride. Traore had become a symbol of African strength. He believed Africa should stand on its own feet. He spoke for the people, the farmers, the workers, the youth. He didn't fear the West, and he didn't chase foreign approval. He believed that Africa's future must be decided by Africans. Robert Hayes arrived in his huge private jet. It was white and gold, with his name written on the side. Reporters rushed to take pictures as he stepped down the stairs in his gray suit and dark sunglasses. He waved, but not warmly. It was a wave of pride. He looked around and said to his assistant, "So this is Burkina Faso. Looks like a small market. Not much to see." People nearby exchanged glances. They could already feel the arrogance in his voice. He was taken to a 5-star hotel in the city. Every detail was perfect. The finest food, the softest bed, the most respectful service. But Robert didn't care. All he wanted was to meet the president and make his big deal. The next morning, the black presidential car came to pick him up. When he arrived at the palace, everything was calm. Burkinabe flags waved in the gentle wind. Guards stood proudly in their uniforms. Inside, the palace hall shined, not with gold or luxury, but with respect and culture. Art from local artists hung on the walls. Symbols of the country's history decorated the room. This was not a place of pride. It was a place of dignity. Then the moment came. President Ibrahim Traore entered the hall. He wore his simple military uniform, the same one he always wore. He walked straight, his head high, his eyes calm but full of fire. When he reached Robert, he smiled and said, "Welcome to Burkina Faso. Mr. Hayes, I hope you had a good flight." Robert nodded quickly. Yes, thank you. "Mr. President, let's talk business." The president motioned for him to sit. They sat across from each other, with a translator and a few officials nearby. Robert opened his briefcase and began his pitch. "Mr. President," he said confidently, "my company wants to help your country. We can bring billions of dollars. We'll build gold mines, oil plants, roads and ports. We'll make your economy grow. But to make it work, we'll need full control of your mining operations. My team will manage everything. You don't have to worry. Just sign the deal and relax." The room went silent. Everyone turned to the president. Traore looked at him and said softly, "And what do my people get from this deal?" Robert smiled. "They'll get jobs. They'll work in our mines. They'll get paid well. But of course we must lead the operations. It's the only way to make it efficient." The president's face didn't move. He sat quietly for a few seconds. Then he asked, "And how much share will my country have?" Robert leaned back. "Well, we'll take 80%. You'll get 20%. That's fair. We're taking all the risk after all." One of the local ministers almost stood up in anger, but the president raised his hand. He wanted to handle this himself. He looked at Robert and said, "So you want to take 80% of our land's wealth and leave us 20%? And you call that fair?" Robert laughed. "Mr. President, this is how business works everywhere. You can't do it alone. You need experts like us." The president smiled slightly and said, "We may not have your money, but we have our dignity. And we don't sell that." Robert didn't understand. He thought the president was joking. He said, "Come on, Mr. President, don't make this emotional. It's just business. You'll make millions. You could be richer than any leader in Africa." This time, the president's face turned serious. He leaned forward and said slowly, Mr. Hayes, I didn't become a leader to be rich. I became a leader to protect my people, and my people are not for sale." The entire room was silent. No one dared to speak. Robert looked angry now. He said, "If you reject this offer, you'll lose your chance. Other countries beg for our money. Don't make a mistake." The president stood up calmly. He looked straight into his eyes and said, "The mistake is thinking Africa still bows to money. Those days are gone." Then he turned and walked out, meeting over. Robert sat there. Speechless, he couldn't believe it. No one had ever walked out on him before. He felt insulted. That afternoon, he called a press conference. He tried to look confident. He said, "I came to help Burkina Faso, but the president doesn't understand business. Maybe one day they'll realize they need us." But his words didn't go as he planned. People across the country were angry. They said, "How dare this man talk down to our president?" That night, the story spread everywhere. On social media, on TV, in markets. Everyone was talking. Young people shared clips and wrote, "Traoré stood for us. He showed them Africa is not weak." The next morning, a crowd gathered outside the palace. They sang songs. They waved flags. They shouted, "Long live Traoré! Long live Burkina Faso!" The president didn't appear in front of them, but he saw them from his window and smiled. He knew something big had changed, not just in his country, but in all of Africa. A few days later, he gave a short speech to the nation. He said, "We welcome friends from every country, but not those who come to control us. We seek respect, not pity. We will build our own path." Those words spread far beyond Burkina Faso. They reached people across Africa, in Ghana, in Mali, in Senegal. People repeated his quote. It became a symbol of strength. Meanwhile, Robert Hayes's business began to fall apart. His name was now linked with arrogance and disrespect. Some of his partners pulled out. His company's shares dropped. He tried to explain himself on American TV, saying, "I was only trying to help," but no one believed him anymore. Months later, in a quiet interview, he finally said, "I went to Africa thinking I was the teacher, but I left as a student. That young president taught me a lesson I'll never forget. Money can buy things, but it can never buy respect." People clapped for that line. It showed he had finally understood. Back in Burkina Faso, the president kept moving forward. He launched new programs to train young people. He opened schools in villages. He gave small farmers machines to grow more food. He said, "If others can build big nations, so can we." New investors came, this time with respect. They didn't talk down to him. They said, "We want to work with you, not rule you." The country slowly began to grow stronger. People had jobs, families had food, young. Men and women believed again in their land, and all this started because one man refused to bow down to money. The story of Ibrahim Traore and Robert Hayes became a story told across Africa. Elders told it to children, teachers, told it in schools. It became a lesson. Respect yourself, and the world will respect you. Years later, people still say that day was a turning point. The day Africa stood tall, because it wasn't about money. It wasn't about business. It was about pride, respect, and truth. And that's how an arrogant businessman who came to take everything left with nothing except a lesson. He came with gold. But Ibrahim Traore showed him that the real gold of Africa is dignity. So remember this, my friend, you can lose money and still live. But if you lose respect, you lose everything. And that's why the world will never forget that an American businessman disrespected President Ibrahim Traore and learned the most powerful lesson of his life. If this story touched your heart, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because here we tell stories. Stories that inspire, stories that teach, and stories that remind us who we are. Hit the like button. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, respect is power. Until next time, this is African Tales, bringing you stories that move the soul. Stay proud, stay strong, stay African.